And this gives us a wonderful check on whether or not we're getting things right. Now, of course, over the centuries, the Jews have turned these things into traditions, and we say, oh, traditions, we don't like traditions, but that's not really right. These traditions have helped preserve these truths within the nation of Israel, and so we can still look at Israel even today after all the corruption that there's been through tradition, and we can still see preserved within the nation of Israel all these doctrines that we're learning. In Exodus 34, 19 and 20, this principle is built in the law, and so it's built into the social structure of Israel and so preserved perpetually. I want you to understand that Israel is another guideline for us. We look at God's word and it tells us exactly what we've got. We look at the children of Israel and we can say, oh yes, I can see that lived out there. Right. Now, it's my understanding that this matter of redemption of the firstborn would be built into the purification ceremony of Leviticus 12. And we'll look at this, Leviticus 12, because it's relevant to what we're doing. Leviticus 12. Right. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If a woman have conceived seed, and born a man-child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, according to the days of the separation for her infirmity, then shall she be unclean. And in the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised, and she shall then continue in the blood of her purifying 33 days. She shall touch no hallowed thing, nor come into the sanctuary, until the day of her purifying be fulfilled. But if she bear a maid child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. And when the days of her purifying are fulfilled, for a son or for a daughter, now this is what she is to do. She shall bring a lamb of the first year for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or turtle dove for a sin offering unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation unto the priest, who shall offer it before the Lord and make an atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the issue of her blood. This is the law for her that hath borne a male or a female. And if she be not able to bring a lamb, then she shall bring 2 turtles, and that's turtle doves it's talking about, or 2 young pigeons, the one for the burnt offering and the other for a sin offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for her, and she shall be clean. Now it's interesting to note in Luke 2, Luke 2, Luke 2, 22 to 24. This is talking about Jesus as a baby. Right, 21. And when 8 days were accomplished for the circumcising of the child, his name was called Jesus, which was so named of the angel. And so this is Mary has brought forth Jesus, and it says, and when the days of her purification, according to the law of Moses, were accomplished, they brought him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every male that openeth the womb shall be called holy to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice according to that which is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. Right, and so this idea that when a firstborn son was born into a family, that he belonged to God and he was to be given to God, this was done in practice at this ceremony of purification that was built into the law. Right, so now let's ask ourselves again, why did God give the law? Was it to save mankind from sin and death? No, it wasn't. Why wasn't it? Well, because we cannot keep it. The Jews couldn't keep it, and we can't keep it either. It doesn't save us, it condemns us. It wasn't put there to save us. In the Garden of Eden, mankind in Adam fell. Now we know that it wasn't accidental, we know it was deliberate, and the law was to show us just how far we fell. The law is diagnostic in nature. The law tells us we are sinners, and it refers us to Christ for grace. The law judges us by giving us the clear knowledge of our sinful state, but it does not provide salvation from that state. It does, however, lead us to Christ and shows us that our salvation is in Him. So we've got Dr. Law and we've got Dr. Grace. And Dr. Law, we go to him and say, I've got a problem. And he says, yes, I can confirm that. And I diagnose that you've got a problem, and that problem is sin. And we say, well, what can you do about it? And Dr. Law says, well, I can't do anything about it, but I can refer you to Dr. Grace, and he has the perfect answer that will cure you eternally. And so the law leads us to Christ. So now let us look at the law as it affected the children of Israel. Let's go back to Exodus 12:40. Exodus 12:40. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. Right? So for 430 years, the children of Israel had been in Egypt. For many years they had been slaves. Exodus 1. 18. Where are we? Exodus 1, 8 to 14. And we'll just read this because we want a clear background to it. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigour, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigour. Right, so for 430 years they were in Egypt, and they were becoming, if you like, indoctrinated into being like the Egyptians. Now they kept themselves separate, but still they were living under the Egyptian rule. And then for many years they were slaves. And so they had lived under the yoke of Egyptian slavery, and that had governed their lives totally. Their whole social structure was Egyptian and totally governed by Pharaoh. Right? Now, we get a picture of them after 430 years. They're not what they were when they went down to Egypt, are they anymore? They are really more like Egyptians than anything else. And now, suddenly, their lives were changed. They were free. Now, that means that they no longer were being told what to do. they came out of a life of strict bondage and suddenly that they were free. And so they were just totally without direction. And they were now disorganised people with no idea of how to live their lives as a national entity. They didn't have a national entity. They didn't have that cohesion to know how to live their lives out. And so God gave them the law. Now we can look back and we can see that it was clearly God's plan that they go into slavery in Egypt because He needed them when they came out of Egypt to be a blank sheet, to put the law in place and have them embrace it and make that their social structure. So God gave them the law. They came out, and 2 months later they were at Mount Sinai, and Moses went up and God gave him the law, and the law was a set of guidelines to govern the entire social structure of the nation of Israel for the rest of history. This God's plan was that when they came out of Egypt, they would have nothing in their background that was theirs particularly. And they came out of Egypt and they were like a clean sheet where God said, all right, I can write on this sheet and I can put the law in place and they will embrace it. They will make it their law and their social structure, and that will be the thing that will govern Israel from now on. Now the law gave them stability, and they desperately needed that. That's the thing they didn't have. And it took quite a while for the law to have that effect, but it did eventually. And the law gave them direction. It pointed them to God. That was the idea of the law, to point them to God. And then the law taught them how to live out their lives from day to day, the way they were to act towards each other. In many ways, the law of Moses introduced what we call common law. In fact, our common law is based on the 10 Commandments. Right, how we live from day to day, and that's what the law was to do for them. And then the law taught them how to live seasonally. Now God used the seasons, spring, summer, autumn, winter, and He used the seasons as a basis for the law, what they were to do on a yearly basis, based on the seasons. And then the law taught them how to worship their God. So it taught them how to live spiritually and gave them that spiritual life. And then the law gave them a system of legal justice. So it taught them how to live legally, how to do what was right, how to do what was just, how to do what was acceptable to God in God's sight. And out of that legal justice, we get the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Right? That comes directly out of the law. The law taught them how to live ecologically with in harmony with nature. The law taught them environmentally. It taught them not to kill out all the animals. It taught them not to chop down all the trees. All the details of how they were to live within the environment that God gave them. And then the law taught them medically and hygienically. Now, they back then, medicine was they had medicine, but they didn't have like the modern medicines we've got. And so it was very important that their hygiene was good. And the law taught them all about hygiene. And it's remarkable, most armies in the world now use a very similar system to what the children of Israel were taught. And then the law taught them how to live communally. It taught them about marriage, family, and the community. And on top of all this, built into the social structure of Israel by the law, are all the doctrines of the New Testament, fulfilled totally in Christ, just as Matthew 5, 17 and 18 tells us they will be. And we can see them lived out before our very eyes, and all the world can see. They're clear for all the world to see if we just take the time to look at the Jewish nation and understand how they live, what governs their lifestyles, and we can look and we can check that we've got it right, and we'll leave it there.